StarFox 64, or Lylat Wars as it was unfortunately known here in the UK and the rest of Europe due to a trademark dispute, seeing Nintendo wanting to avoid lawsuits, was one of the absolute best games on the N64. And today we are reviewing the Switch 2 remake, simply called StarFox. Now, I've spent 6 hours experiencing every single level this game has to offer, because it's not just about selecting a path and making your way to the boss. Sometimes you have to actively achieve something, like flying through all the arches on Corneria to get to Sector Y, and then hitting a score of 100 to reach Acquiesce. And here you'll experience that classic submarine level. And I found this remake pretty addictive, and it has some added extras that are definitely geared towards hardcore fans. For starters, you can't simply jump into the expert mode without earning a gold medal on every single level, which, if memory serves me correctly, is exactly the same as the original. But for some reason, the first 3 or 4 missions felt incredibly easy, and far more easier than I remember the original being. And on my first run, I was racking up tons of lives without dying, and some bosses literally went down in less than a minute. However, when I hit the last couple of levels, I was glad to finally find this game actually has a bit of a challenge, especially if you take some damage, lose a wing, and consequently lose your twin or hyper lasers. Andros himself, which is the final boss, was actually a real challenge, and that comes down to one specific change with the remake. Now personally, I don't see this as much of an issue, but on some bosses there is no real visual indication, like the flashing textures we saw on the N64, to show you that your shots are actually dealing damage. But after a little experimentation, you'll easily figure out what you need to do, and after that's done, it's just smooth sailing. It's a small thing that lovers of the original might get annoyed at, but I actually liked it. It added a couple of extra minutes of trial and error, and on certain bosses, the weak points are still pretty obvious. What I've always loved about these games is the replayability, and so far I've found this version super addictive. Playing this game again with the N64 controller was absolutely fantastic, and I actually prefer using the N64 controller to the Switch 2 controllers. You can also use the mouse feature of the Switch 2 controllers, but like every other game on the system, I don't care for this feature at all. But what makes this remake so special comes down to 2 things. Firstly, it's a great sign that Nintendo is finally realising their past catalogue contains some of their best work. And if this remake is anything to go by, I have no doubt the upcoming remake of Ocarina of Time will be delivered with massive care. And it will be enough to not only appease the original fans, but maybe attract new players too. Because visually, StarFox on Switch 2 is absolutely incredible. For me, this is the most graphically pleasing game on the Switch 2. The music, the voice work, and the cutscenes feel incredibly premium. It's like seeing the N64 version for the first time all over again. Back in the day, those graphics from the N64 were mind-blowing for their time, and I get that exact same feeling here. All the little details like the sea spray as you fly just above the water, and I gotta say, I think the reflections here look great. And there's also some identical sound effects that instantly hit you right in the nostalgia feels. Does it feel old to play though today? Well yeah, unfortunately it does a little bit sometimes, but it's also been a great reminder for me that just shooting stuff and chasing high scores is in itself a great rewarding gameplay mechanic. While playing this with the N64 controller, which I think is a great touch by the way, I couldn't help but think how good it would be to get Wave Race F-Zero and Super Mario 64 the exact same way, keeping everything intact from the original game, but tweaking it just enough and laying some gorgeous modern visuals on top, because this would bring some fantastic 90s games to life all over again. As I said, my only real negative is having the harder mode locked behind these medals, when I really just wanted to jump into the hardest difficulty immediately, because in my opinion, this game isn't that hard to play. In those 6 hours, I've already beaten this at least 4 times, and that includes replaying a couple of missions. There are also some extra StarFox items to unlock as collectibles, plus there is some avatar options if you have Nintendo's camera or any third-party camera, like being able to stick Fox's ears on your head or Falco's beak on your face. There's local co-op too, where one player flies the ship and the other shoots. And then there's the new StarFox multiplayer mode, which is absolute chaos. This is a competitive 4v4 battle mode seeing Team StarFox versus Team Star Wolf, and you get to have some really cool dogfights. There's 3 maps currently available: Sector Y, which features a capture the flag style game mode seeing you hijack space cargo from space pirates, all the while dodging enemy players. Then there's Corneria, which features zone control or King of the Hill if you will, and then finally Fucina, seeing you collect time drops of meteors in the Meteor Scavenge mode. Each map is filled with wild power-ups, from cluster rockets, shields to a massive charged up plasma blast. The sad news is the traditional 4-player split-screen mode from the N64 is gone, but Nintendo have replaced it with Game Share. Now you only need one copy of the game to do this, and then you can connect with up to 3 other Switch consoles, and apparently this can be done on Switch 1 and Switch 2, but I actually haven't tested this yet, and then you can play all together. There's no denying it that StarFox is a great arcade-style shoot-'em-up with a story told through some very impressive cutscenes. There's also multiple branching paths, and using the submarine and the Landmaster was an absolute blast. If you were a fan of StarFox 64, this is hands down a must-buy. But for new players coming in at the price of £45 or $50 who have absolutely no nostalgia for this franchise, you might feel a little bit shortchanged. Getting to the final boss can take just 30 or 45 minutes, even with the training and enjoying the cutscenes. And while that's technically true in terms of a single run-through, there is still a massive amount to do and see by taking on these different mid-level challenges I mentioned earlier. I've seen everything this game has to offer in under 6 hours, but for me, I will easily invest that time all over again to get all the medals and then replay it again on the hardest difficulty. Overall, I've absolutely loved playing this today, and for the sake of calling it a review, I give StarFox an instant buy recommendation for the Nintendo Switch 2. Well, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you ever so much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.